make sure you fly.
I'm obviously going to blow.
All right. Anyone not ready? Contingent one is Russia. The politics is exemplified by American reaction to the very tunnel article. One of the West's most prestigious newspapers has used found as condescending stereotypes of Russian madness. Russians are depicted as irrational, zealous, obsessed with dreams or gigantic meta parties by the backwards and inferiority. Yet even this critic fills the pole of imagination the very tunnel. We secretly yearn for policies like the tunnel, but we reject them in order to feel superior to the other. That's right. Whittle test one that we're going to tunnel super typical to grudge the idea that identifies sensibility and doing it has to be what's Russia ancient iron display when I go to even Russia. Get it so they don't live for an offense. Give to deep to other Russian never during something quite possible as it is a magnificent madness. Picking Russia as a foreign other located in a distant age apart from the West and capable of technological transformation encourages violence and construction and enemy relationship increment that's really tension between accepting culture differently promoting modern states independent Americans of the cause of the West and the expert to new bit of trace and supposed to limit the Russians ability to function in the modern world along with which just made Russian past many claims with them all calling these characteristics affect Russian economic parts of American news and the idea that Russia raised and accorded off to people friendly life and less Asian war that understood as Asians thought the Russian consistently linked over to the modern world. These perceptions spill over into our everyday lives and pit Russia against the U.S. The effect of Russian stereotypes that always top education. We will forget the details we learn but retain a generalized impression. Washburn and Burke 97 American media to define American policy and conscious Russia of the dream for our side together people almost different Jews very routine very information that do change our life conception of our frame of reference from which nature but obviously if they connect every life one speaker and learn people to act with their awareness of the force create a media organization to construct social reality but it's or using critical types of exposition and articulating forward discourse how people act within a situation or find level consume the naturally when the report becomes a process of meaning so much certain events get returnally sanctified and interrogating our perceptions of Russia is key to good foreign policy education overall. We the same kind of thing discourses are spread to others live into one hostage towards Russian about policies Russophobia implication of foreign economy Russia for the most useful policy structure about the belief the Americans of policy should be rooted of Russia but it's so good stuff here is the American objective contribute to mistaken policy belief make it more difficult for Americans to be the very inferior and connect our China kind of races with certain nation classic wrestling year to least have to wicked that makes extinction inevitable. That's keen in 86 when we find ourselves superior neighbors and create a house of property and cause around public interest our neighbors and things ancient benefit to over for and also to try to make equal solution the what of psychic organs are being with rather than being against contention to is excess energy is inevitable expenditure drives the ties theory of the solar economy energy will never be spent and recycled. It just becomes a question of where we channel the excess land and I do expenditure operates in network. I thought he describes as a general solar economy the economics of excess loose stuff that are reckoning we ultimate ultimate effect of the sun excess surplus always receive the work of advertising of the consumer the collecting fast energy for compounded expenditures and uninhabited wastes the return to energy to solve the competing and recycling human economics excess money and must be energy put it into the service of the future and failure to harness the excess breeds destruction. Nuclear annihilation becomes inevitable. So 2007 ties theory is concerned with the ways when people can meet a larger reality unless they enjoy a little bit of carrying capacity and growth and line possible as long as growth have been reached the excess must be destroyed not but only to cause it us to destroy something in front we're trying to destroy the excessive energy cannot be used by the economy to suffer its possibility of excess only so much output could be brought into the ever more efficient productive parts and ultimately the excess will have to be burned after battle to result in ultimate reduction in carrying capacity burned out depopulated earth and expenditure is zero sum and waste is inevitable. We must prevent catastrophic expenditure by channeling the excess towards mega projects. Harney and Martin 07 were domesticity which after time free public systems and multi-country the anti-productive state of the kind of control and the movement of destruction of the war is the consequent category of expenditure that can be sold back to the same critical lines the accurate exchange we spend and one category is in principle for the pseudo later some productive city to not any catastrophic war expenditure could be wasted in war or pledge to increase the standard of living and a tunnel to Russia is the ultimate form of glorious expenditure. Energy should be channeled toward mega projects that alleviate access because absent that it gets channeled into warfare. San Francisco Chronicle 96. All these large enterprises they will get eventually but they have to keep us going to war on why war if the industrial safety of the world to devote the interest to huge car to be far too busy to book you can think about going to war. The point is the words are coming to dangerous these people in the organism to people microwave ways could you our rockets should be built but more will focus on what could people but I'm okay going to looking back there's an ethos ideally the mega project should be a combination of a dreamer and a practical person. Our form of sacrificial politics is key. The plan is key to transition away from restricted economics and breaking ethic of pot lapse is yang and 2K sacrificial ritual and best of academic present opposition logic hard with potential for alternative social orders and these works of the work and just reconceptions and capital such a way to reveal the most of academic societies business mechanisms for the collective consumption of the surplus and delivering production of sacrifice and gate for reciprocity with the gods for taking free to their writing do that on the company to return sacrifice on the surplus was expended the energy and the trade corrupt the ancient and into and control the presence of war and giving me a sex to what the nation U.S. could engage on about the powerful with the 7 years by time which today and no work of the economy not productive expenditure the solvent spirit both capital city social modernity and current ideology makes war inevitable. We must channel the access towards policies to promote peace but tie 47 issues of war causes the U.S. committed to each part of the access will even affect war bad current will move quickly towards the legitimate resolution of the problems will lead to the constitution sign like the access giving the surplus produced by the outlier the way you use of the surplus and will change that this would be a rest factor to the team personally could only be less but the world only to have a peace is the crime need to change. Contingent 3 is utopia. We ask you to imagine that the United States federal government increases its investment in transportation infrastructure in the United States necessary to complete a fixed link bearing straight crossing our framing of the Atlas bridge to others. We explore the tension between universalism and relativism and Western perceptions of Russia that's ignorant of those universalism particularly have to significant cultural and cultural difference is the social good of your universe view all people the same face different class of present rights. I can only hope to build a bridge now that expect a complex scale by revolution so to be or independent position to understand all depends on culture different conversation. We must take a leap of imagination. The brain straight link is being killed by the focus on details of implementation. that fear of risk. We should start by imagining the crossing, not by debating how government policy is implemented. That's Oliver 07 is trying to pass conduct to the Swami Singh to be regarded with its sweeping ambition as the company of creativity, support, imagination, what's required behind endeavor is this place of corporate legislative creativity do not act policy is sophisticated innovation. Such with us on define what is company unacceptable further streets emerging. First, the crossing is already interrupted coming. A postmodern subdivision for refused, but it says come from there is no speculation over the scout of of this project is subject for discussion. The word of profound changes to politics and confidence, accepting social strength. They global views only the boundary once really covered as the government crisis. But the plan is utopian imagination of technology asserted against the gradual erosion of hope that accompanies the focus on detail. Proclaiming the narrative of technology utopianism does not mean blindly embracing all technologies, but it does prevent the destruction of all human meaning. Long 2003, history of utopia constitutes a gradual approximation of your life. Therefore, tells the death of utopia. When history is becoming man's creation with the biggest squad of utopias, man, this is will shape his including the limitation of reality, the elements of our world leaders to a matter of fact, which ultimately would mean the decay of human well-made becomes a word thing we would face with the greatest paragraphs who achieve the highest degree of rational mastery of existence becomes a recreative and society with the utopia would be society with the goals with ultimate losing we lose decision we always very severe whenever new technology appears. The conflict between utilitarian technology those created other all science technology utopias come power to this is found science fiction would opens up new possible domains. Think of the form utopia if that's the role of intellectuals these technological metaphors provide with the ideology utopia function to make these technology utopia a fair movement to the purpose of being our call to imagine what the government might do forces us out of our current subject position. Our ability to imagine another role is the foundation of ethical engagement with the other. FC99 without imagination would be unable to put self position of business the ethics of myself as the other capacity to be shared versus can find points commonality on dialogical interaction and difficult to love it is what depends on the capacity to embrace the limited range of the virtual picture side is the virtual ethical goals but it is transformational possibilities that is certainly to the capacity of imagination. Reimagining technology is critical to overcome threats to human survival. That's Fresco Meadows the seventh ability of the same life it's ensured to the change pollution overpopulation disease science technology for use abundance makes things source but it's change in our sense of direction purpose and alternative for sustainable world only simple sustainable has requires the imagination limits to consider the unconventional that almost every concept of words vertical rejects laughter when first presented. Every act of imagination has elements of science fiction. The very nature of fiat makes describing the real world impossible since every plan is a fictional alternative to the status quo. The treatment 2000 there's probably no text in which science fiction altogether has a tendency to speak just for the concepts of fictionality and the construction of alternative world is very definition of fiction and irreducible degree of ulterior issues found in the case of which rather realistic fiction, imagination fiction, science fiction, only even it's wider than it's forward be just for context and shape to put together concept general tendency of science fiction, structure, representation, traditional conception of government fiat are also fiction, which means that they are not more educational nor predictable. Claude 88 one all too easy concept of fiction of single-minded to say this is exactly what it wants to achieve. Top square positive rationalistic conceptions intended discovery of safety zone with a full committed academic compare with the making policies covered by the academic blood of execution policy execution for apparently false so probably in error because the policy statement the real world doesn't what it tries to do is not going to sound weird to prevent charge policy they must be cut cautious attributing purpose of responsibility government to the essential to bear constantly mind the reality that the government never fully tracked by the never choose the needed purpose such as to display the theory attributes to them and we do not lean to their utopianism bad offense. We are not totalizing Robert's without practical thinking which everyone says testimony to the power of system through even establishes to its own mirrors the utopia keeps like the possibility of our world different utopia plans fit with conscious uniformity have to remove their self by diversity pose particular issues of without uniformity one key feature postmodern intelligence can on its own embrace utopia and the policy interpretation of fiat makes ethical engagement with others impossible. We should imagine possibilities rather than legislating commands. That's FC 99 ethical prescription can include freedom from scripts and modality would terms or the action from the imperative to someone to this is why only a market of very ethics should be able to should appeal possibility rather than opposing this the production of cheating RB with these imperative all disciplines scholarship would have been from corporate levels of potentiality and imagination multiple levels of freedom ethics and this different to is more favorable to ethics that the prescribes to obey already established laws. We need a differential and interventional ethics based on matching others as a different result of imagining ourselves as possibilities for others.
Ready?
Yeah.
Alright. First piece of evidence we read, the Whittle evidence, indicates that some journalist wrote about why Russia is bad. This is substantiated by your Washburn and Burke evidence, which talks about how the American media writes about how Russia is bad. What does this debate round have to do anything with that, with what the media is writing?
The evidence serves as an example of the dominant conception of Russia, and we argue that we changed.
So that one newspaper serves as a totalizing example for the United States ideology towards
No,
Russia?
that one example is an example of it. The Ingerman evidence cites overall perceptions during the Cold War. The Fresco and Meadows evidence cites things that television, the Reagan administration, etc., have imbued with an American
that's
cultural
fine. Your Keene evidence talks about how embracing the other is key to preventing extinction. You build a tunnel to Russia.
I wouldn't exactly characterize it as embracing the other is key to prevent extinction.
Actually, that's basically how it's phrased. Only building a tunnel to Russia. Keene indicates we have to accept others in all instances. Why does building a tunnel to Russia
definitely
solve?
doesn't say that. The Keene evidence says that the approach towards the other, which posits ourselves as superior to them, is dangerous. That is all that the Keene evidence says.
Okay, so why does just doing this with Russia solve your
The
global
Liven
violence
evidence
claims?
indicates that America's foreign policy right now is rooted in Cold War assumptions and cultural preconceptions that view us
so
as objective.
What does imagining building this tunnel do?
Oh, you mean the internal link?
Yeah.
Sure, the Ingerman evidence indicates that by exploring the differences between universalism and particularism, we're able to accept the differences between the US and Russia without
to
totalizing.
explore those differences.
Sure.
Alright, sweet. Now, on your Batai advantage, I'm sure the San Francisco Chronicle is very well read in the literature of Batai, but this just seems to indicate that the tunnel to Russia is functionally useless. Does any useless expenditure solve your advantage?
Definitely disagree with that. It says that if nations were to engage in cooperative mega projects, they would not have the resources to go to war.
Okay, so any mega projects like the tunnel are able to solve
cooperative mega projects.
Cooperative
which channel the
projects.
excess. Correct.
Okay, so anything two nations do together, right?
I wouldn't characterize it as anything.
Okay, where's the bright
together.
line?
Like if
Why
two
is the
nations were to
app?
go to
Why
war
is the
together,
app
that would
unique?
probably not solve the app.
Why is the app?
Our turn links
unique
talk
in
about
this?
the way.
Right, the San Francisco Chronicle evidence is the only evidence in the advantage talking about the app.
You're correct.
It just says it's useless.
It says that a mega project, the sort of hope-based
So
ideology.
would we bring all our troops home? For example,
Are you
if we
gonna
were
like
build
let
this
me
tunnel?
finish?
No, I need a
answering
new
this
question.
Cool.
Would we bring all our troops home, for example, if we were to build this tunnel?
What do you mean?
Like you said, mega projects channel away our energy towards war. Like, would we bring all our troops home from Afghanistan?
I don't know.
instead?
It
You
would
don't
prevent
know?
great power war at
How?
least. Because there we would not have the resources to do so.
So that seems to be a relations argument, not as much of a
No, I just
Batai
said because we would not
argument.
have the resources to do so, which is not a relations argument.
All right. Your Batai impact evidence, Batai 47 or 45, I think it was, indicates that in order to be able to solve, the U.S. has to create global living standards. That was in the unhighlighted part of the evidence.
I don't think that it says that.
I guarantee you it says
It might
that.
say
How
that
does
it would
the
be
app
nice
do
if we
that?
created global living standards. It does not say that's a
we
prerequisite
pull up the
to
Batai
solve this
evidence?
store.
Giving the surplus energy produced an outlet other than
Raising
war.
the global standard of living, yeah.
Way off. Russia. Excess.
Utopia.
You guys got it? You guys have it? James, you all good? Cool. Counterplan text, we ask you to imagine a fixed link bearing straight crossing as a standpoint of global citizens, imagining the future without the status key to prevent nationalism from infecting the app. This turns case seriously and Roney Jr. in 02. We explain the future by not what is most powerful. Preservation assume the nation's absolutely and sufficiently powerful to be involved in SF imaginary solution to the love asset of it. Do they solve another time sense nationality, the global imaginary world, the world nationality, and all individual conscious models of this rather natural patriarchy bypass cultural tensions or relations of the natural culture perceived withering away in the nation take the after transnational cultural flows rejecting national ideology means the nation should be consigned to the ash heap of history. Science fiction favorite models are rationalistic and they converge in world nations are modern forms of products of literary, at least constructed imaginary communities through journalism, fiction, language, reforms, and cultural policy nations and the construction of the nation state they are imagining goals of nationalism. Identifying ourselves within the state makes authorization inevitable. The state constructs an identity and eliminates those who do not fall under it through genocide or external wars. Oxford in 8. The democracy's individual subjects to violence in a part of the communities and church states who give members and approved dangerous illegal to go not belong massacres who carried out by the high maternal population of solidarity. They did not hesitate to defend themselves and eliminate native populations because those native populations were different. The homogenization of communities has been obtained by coercive force of means of assimilation or even genocide, oblivious to the blood they had spilled, horrors of the past and perfect for peaceful cohabitation. Democracies can be harmful of those who do not recognize the members whether they are minorities or the nation's external enemies or useful for developing common identity by means of outward porn and violence to repress the inside of preventing civil wars and strengthen the power of the state. And next up. Interpretation: the affirmative must defend the implementation of the plan of the United States federal government and should garner advantages based off the results of the implementation of the plan by the United States federal government. Should is a duty or obligation. This is Webster's in 84. Should express a duty or obligation. And B, violation of the defends an act of imagination rather than the implementation of specific policy. C's voting issue 1 is what is the affirmative can defend any action they can think of because it's only a question of the imagination of the plan and not the implementation. The only way to allow for net ground is to be ample prepared to limit the topic down by implementation of the plan because it doesn't allow the act to spike out of solving the deficits such as the feasibility of plan. 2 is education, debating of the implementation of the transportation and instruction is the most important form of education because topic changes from year to year. Learning about Russophobia can happen on every topic. The topic changes every year. We can retain the perception of Russia, and there's no reason we can't learn about specifics of transportation infrastructure. They endorse useless education. The only groups are already interested in the agenda. Care Kumar in 10. Cipher from the literary utopia people to be weak and capable of setting the social and political agenda. One has to realize fragmentation of audience no longer have the common constituency to appeal to involve particular interests. There are occasional crossovers we must accept the consumer on cultural places hard to imagine the national form of debate and discussion. And 3, switch side debate the affirmative skirts the core resolutional ground question by skirting the focus focus of the debate to the U.S. strategic perceptions of Russian not transportation infrastructure. The Afghan critique of our representation of the Russian when they are negative. Unless the defensive implementation, they don't allow the negative to garner any offense to solve their offense force Afghan nationality. They can invent multiple worlds by advocating different worlds and attempt to find the most utopian world. That has a few impacts. One is that there's no real world has the ability to defend multiple worlds. Hold the after defending the implementation. That's the only important because the L2 is to get ground the negative to get a stable focus for the offense because the Afghans just spike out of their 30s education. They decreases into the education over any issue because the affirmative considerably rather off top Cali should be voted for fairness education and for the reasons outlined above the next top Cali. The affirmative claims advantage of representation of the one who seems to improve the political implementation of the plan is better than the status quo independent policy option than they should win. They can't win. That the plan doesn't do anything. This is a reason to reject the team for fairness in education. Next up. Disastrous and inevitable product of chaos, the inherent condition of life attempts to negate the chaos as the worst form of nihilism and serves only to amplify small disasters and global catastrophes, which turns case Turdarian in 5. It takes the catastrophe as a real illusory belief we continue to harvest and continue to replace our faith in natural borders and guard of bureaucracy and accurate technology to argue the interactability of design and reveals the continue to highly interconnected character of life between the mixed metaphors, the highly metaphysical concept, good voice, and looks and uneasy recognition of the administration and the task of managing this still rivalry cascading global effect based on linear notions of causality. How can realism account for a complex catastrophe like toppling the World Trade Center by a handful of jihadist force, 5 hurricane might well have begun to deployment, but finds regular escape scenario situation, training the disaster exercises anomaly and unequivocal might well act as force multiplying cascading effects transform by sudden events of singular attacks and disasters and suffering is an existential ground for human experience affirmative, commodify suffering, destroying its potential for greatness, climate 96. Suffering is one of the existential grounds for human experience, images of suffering are appropriated to appeal emotionally and morally, images of victims are commercialized, taken up in the process of global market and business and available for getting market share, the experience is beginning to use a commodity reverted sit down in the sort of there's nothing way to suffer pain is perceived and expressed differently, and the affirmative imagines a separate utopian world where conflict and suffering don't exist, a problem that engenders hate toward the real world where conflict and suffering are inevitable. The affirmative solution to this dissonance is unending violence. Pike in 10. The counterfeit image of peace and harmony found itself reformed and the implicit violence is accessible and force that we enumerate throughout the covert and homogeneity of description of political ideal. Utopian to mark on offense force delivering the oppressed and enslaved people. The explicit principle of rights warfare considered magnanimous and necessary purpose of America. The only which exterminating violence beyond the only ordinary interest of policy is the apparent humanitarianism of utopian free figures and rates of morality is murderous. The universe is more than totalitarian than many women. The opposing types of utopians just wars are automatically and just rational, sensibly peaceful and internally harmonious social order and confronting the outside world and antagonistic posture of perpetual war of imperial expansion. We will do the dominion.
Market
expansion. Cool. And the alternative is to do nothing in the instance of the plain voting making the symbolized adolescent relationship with existence, accepting the imperfections of status quo products of chaos that are beautiful. The asset advocacy is fundamentally inconsistent with the after compassion of the one who sees rooted in the worst forms of life negations. Urine 34. I lose all courage and will thoughts and useful compassion, vague compassion, the single, the honest superficiality, broken on destiny's relenting, misery that make you scream, return to still pity, the insulting compassion is most common as it was, did not bind you to anything, nobody in the world yet died, and not the suffering. The one who said he had died for us did not die, he was killed, and we must craft theories that recognize the absurd nature of existence. We may seem like monsters, but at least our moral code is relying on a lie that we choose to believe. Article 99. Must make laws in the name of prohibiting acts of violence. Excess requires behavior to violate the rules. The surplus is never extinguished at expense of all leads to violence. The reduction of violence and value for those who can have the real of non-productive expenditure. We fail to recognize ourselves at the deepest level of who we fundamentally are, but high close transgression of our moral values. We need to expand a good life suffocates within the limits without exploding the extreme. These are sports of the movement, always bordering on explosion goes by the natural production of outpourings are required to live in beings, regardless of whether or not we take the responsibilities meant to arrange occurrence of our life. Such energy must be discharged explosively, and outpourings are inevitable. Russia. Assertive policy towards Russia is key to effective relations. Cohen in 11. Putin reminds Russia of national leader of real power. U.S.-Russia relations are include issues concerned that U.S. friends and allies held. Putin exercises ultimate power. The U.S. should pursue the national relations. Russian relations with Moscow improve policies. Congress and administration should not tolerate Russian mistakes. Do not shy away from particular priorities and play hardball and can't build a tunnel. Weather conditions. Moscow. News 11. The Roscoe and senior engineering analyst. The isolation of part that makes the project conducible to the final. Possibly astronomical. Currently, they have no area of infrastructure at all. And Russia can't fund the product. Other infrastructure projects. Moscow. News at 11. The railroads officials they are ready to construct the tunnel. Currently, however, constructed the to take comparatively funded for those who get sufficiently question the rule will, but the bill remains unclearly if under financing problem persists, the tunnel will have to wait to tie. They massively oversimplify the tie under their interpretation. Anything done ever is useless. That solves their excess status quo, solves the app and excess in the number. This search for rational solution to the problems of what I see reproduce their impacts of tie. 67. Industrial society commodity we found impulse to what is essential outside the world of activity, profound calculation, contradiction, or again. Still problem the dominant to regain the intimacy with the range of the lost accessible solutions only exacerbate the problem they have been across the modern world of download for anything illusory means to achieve the essential conflict directly solving the problems they are posed with the search ultimately convinced the activity the ultimate consequence is the only solution to man find himself who looks invading follow the path of self-strength to the obstacle stopping who will not be able to grasp into the benefit of things that always the only catch the whole things the whole solution to the problem of life life rate against opportunity to manner reminds of radically distinctive possibilities. The action which serves commit a turns itself and claims of aiding another dissociates to the state from society takes out their sovereignty behind 85 every contradiction arises from the development of economic license sales and trend deal. The association of homogeneous and social access is research the acute forms of dangerous forms the economic circumstances acted firmly upon the homogeneous elements to promote disintegration from the moment of the rejoin the heterogeneous or realistic that already exists in the organized theory where homogeneity of the delineated by exclusion utopia. Focus on reference also political engagement and problem solving terms we also allow us into. There is no escape from panoptic on the blames. There's no difference between the practice and experience of genocide. Book is acceptable whether it is source. There's no ontological epistemological ground for the distinction between the semacula or image and substance. There doesn't seem to change or articulated aspirations, particular or practical perspectives. Meta-narrative Christian difference. Postmodernism promotes suspicion of anything that attempts to oppose fiction with facts.
Market facts.
Status of the counterplan of the case.
The counterplan is conditional. The K is an affirmation of the status quo.
Okay, the K has an explicit alternative text. So
The explicit alternative text is to do nothing in the instance.
you
of
read cards on the state pick that say that the state causes otherization, and the critique is sort of an impact turn to otherization. So how do you reify that
Wait,
contradiction?
I'm sorry, what?
Your critique says that we shouldn't embrace the other, or that otherization is something that's inevitable and good. Your
No.
net benefit of the state
Our
pick says that
our
otherization
critique
is
says
bad.
Our critique says that suffering is inevitable.
Okay. So do you think that we should embrace the other in the world of the critique?
I'm confused as to what the question is.
I'm trying to establish.
In the world of the critique,
Yeah.
okay? I'm in
Should
the
we
world of
embrace the other?
Our argument is not whether or not we should embrace the other. Our argument is that suffering is inevitable, and your attempt to help others overcome
All right. Your
that
climate
suffering-
evidence is in the context of
Okay.
using suffering, like media distortions of pictures of suffering soldiers, to justify policies. What does it have to do with the AF?
Our argument is that you commodify suffering in
How?
order to try to get things done.
Like what part of the one I see commodifies suffering?
Like the parts where you're like, if we don't do something, extinction will happen.
Okay, so how is that a commodification of suffering?
Because you're attempting to use other people's suffering in order to justify.
Oh no,
your
we're
action.
attempting to use all suffering to justify an action. So why is that a
All-
commodification?
That's the same thing.
Okay, framework. Should is an obligation or duty. Where do you have definitional support for the second part of your interpretation that says we can only garner advantages off of the result of the fiat?
I mean, we don't read another definition
Awesome.
here, right?
What does it mean to defend the implementation of a plan?
I mean, we believe that you should defend, I guess like using the word to answer your question is kind of stupid. We believe that we should be able to garner links off the actual implementation of the
Okay,
plan.
and so if we would give you those links, do we meet your framework?
If you give us that we can read solvency that says that the Bering Strait Tunnel does not work
Okay.
and will never exist,
And
or
if-
that we can read politics this
Yeah.
as,
Okay,
things
awesome.
like that.
Switch side debate, how do we kill it?
Because switch side debate is just a reason why you solve your why we solve your
Limits. There are like thousands of different potential tiny policy apps that can be read. Why does your interpretation
Yeah,
say?
there are millions of things I could imagine, especially if I don't have to
Really?
defend that
Are there
they're
a million
actually
topical
possible.
things that you could imagine?
If I don't have to defend that they're actually possible, yes.
But there's only one advantage to imagination, and that's like the wonder potentiality thing. So why does that destroy limits if there's
I mean, there
really
could be,
only one
I mean, the fact that you're reading multiple advantages probably disproves that there's only one advantage to imagining things.
Education. Why do you have arguments that policy education is better than the education about Russia? That we
Well,
defend?
first is the Kumar evidence, which indicates that anybody who's going to listen to your critique and engage in the sci-fi and stuff are already the people who
Oh,
are
it's,
engaged in
okay,
the
it's just a sci-fi.
sci-fi.
Cool. Really quick, the state pick. What is a world where, from the, like the standpoint of the global citizens, the fixed link is done?
We just imagine that the fixed link Bering Strait Tunnel exists.
Is like built by citizens, or?
We just imagine it from the position of a global citizen.
All right.
Alright, 1 second. Okay, stop right.
How much time do you have left?
7:52.
Kind of,
I'll see
yeah.
what I can cover actually.
Yeah.
I see it, so. Yeah. Okay. The order is going to be the excess advantage, the utopianism advantage, the Russia advantage. Okay. Framework. And the excess advantage, the utopianism advantage, Russia advantage, pick, framework, K. Or T. Okay? Alright. You all set? Economics cannot be restrictive in nature. Excess energies enable how we choose to expend that energy determines our actions. You have two choices in this debate. Either embrace the one season form of glorious expenditure, which diverts resources away from militarism, or vote negative to embrace catastrophe discussion, catastrophic expenditure, make nuclear inevitable. We solve the root cause of their war. We say did not touch this advantage. Now they say everything's useless. However, this is real relevant. It doesn't speak the question of glorious versus catastrophic expenditure. San Francisco Carl Levins indicate that the plan is to divert resources away from challenge war. They say Bataille hates the plan. However, but this evidence talks about Bataille indicting consumption and accumulative ideology, which is exactly what our evidence criticizes. We break down these ideologies that we have to constantly hoard things and embrace potlatch and gift economics. Now they say that Bataille hates the state. However, this argument just indicates that Bataille had some problems with the state, and also our evidence indicates that we need to imagine ourselves in the place state. It does not mean that we're not unable to impede solves because the sheer act of defending implementation or diverting resource waste solves internally to the advantage. Not going to utopianism advantage. Statistical politics is incorrect. We filter and interrogate our relations and connections to others. Extend whittle evidence of repression of secret desires to engage the other creates exclusionary ethics. The next question this debate round is concerned with how cultural discussions and academic setting can serve as a practice for real-world political engagement. We must imagine connection to the other to ensure the erasure of normative ethical systems. Vote affirmative to intertwine yourself with the imaginative potential of our utopia. The space must be the starting point of decision making. They say the reps are bad. However, this is not specific to our representation. Also, there you should have a gut check. Default specificity of our interlinks. Also, reps bad does not mean that we have racist discourse or evidence in the context of rejecting race. Not to the Russian advantage. Now, we must imagine our connection to Russia. Status quo policy making demonizes Russia, makes condescending stereotypical assertions about the country as a whole. Current ideology revolves around mockery while repressing desire at the same time. The inability to develop a bond together destroys our ability to solve global problems. Extend the Washburn-Berg evidence. Cultural discourse concerning Russia spills over to broader foreign policy making our form of imagination key engagement. Now, good to the Cohen evidence. This is exactly the mode of thought we criticize. First, turn constructing foreign policy thus and continuing to demonize Russia creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, breaking away from enmity and imagining our connection to the other creates a condition necessary to read after keen evidence. And second, the concept of fixed Russian identity pitted against the West creates an alibi for our own violence and reflect race, and we begin to essentialize Russia and never able to overtake this, and we can't build a tunnel. However, all of our evidence indicates we must not focus on minutia, and also this is irrelevant. The sheer act of building the tunnel will be enough cooperation to solve the interlink to our advantage. It's not us spiking out of the advantage, just saying that the sheer act of implementation means that even if there's weather conditions, that does not mean that we would not be able to solve that. State Russia will fund the tunnel. However, Whittle indicates that they're committed to it, and they would want to do it that we, yeah, does not go to the state pick. Permutation of both conditionality voting issue damage already been done. No argumentative responsibility produces shallow debates and discourages specific research and education because least part option one conditionality solves drop-ins in our and extend the absent we must imagine ourselves in place of another actor. Two impacts. A when our project does not get cooperative. You have to analyze the state action in a vacuum, not in conjunction with a starting point. And B when no solvency in the counter advocacy. Placing ourselves in the seat of the state creates change because of imaginative potential. We solve your nationalism argument. Statistical politics is infected with nationalist ideology that fixates itself in our everyday discursive practice. Only a risk of the one he's seeking overcome. And their pick misses the point of the app. Incorporating discussions of ethics and normative stances towards the other in a deliberative space is key to breaking down status quo assertions of Russia's evil. We must imagine ourselves in the place of state. Imagination makes both advocacies compatible. We can envision multiple worlds with and without state means person solves all. Your state bad often is not responsive. Our state key one is the state is bad. We critique the same things that your net benefit does. The only difference is that we engage the actor instead of disregarding and abandoning internal solvency. And also their assimilation arguments are in the context of assimilating and making other likely. We accept difference. We interlink to the story. We do not homogenize. We accept difference. Now their evidence of value sustained in a vacuum. Infusing ethics is critical to overcome the Simmons and identical politics with the the politics and the Chinese moral political order because all forms of totalitarian ethics need to politics to others. Or ethics may be transmitted to politics. All this is universalization. This is the ego from the rest of others. Politics that consider fields who need he'll also picks are bad and voting issue heavily aggressively to endless number trivial net benefits. Counterinterpretation deploy the net benefit as a dissatisfied job second framework. Reject the argument of the team if they win framework, just bind us to implementation. This solves their offense. We meet their interpretation. Fiat is an act of will to create something without further effort. Imagination is the act or power forming a mental image of something not present. Merriam-Webster dictionary of absent their ability to draw a distinction between fiat and imagination. Air out on the question of framework. None of the evidence is contextual, nor does it assume our form policy making. We do not spike your offense. Our advantages are based on imagination. Our interpretation of fiat still allows contestation of potential abuse is not voted, not quantifiable, and it does not set a precedent. Logical reciprocity. The negative gets to critique the assumptions and what you see. We should be able to defend them. That's key to reciprocal ground, which promotes clash, which is the biggest internal link to education. And fairness is a bad standard for evaluation. Some teams are faster than others, and multiple structural factors. Some even I go to a small school, things are probably unfair for me. If we want that education is a pinnacle standard, then air app and we internally turn ground questions. Representations law for more K ground they conflate, criticizing disads and spiking disads. They have no offense except deliberate evidence. Our model of fiat is comparatively better. Planning is short term and makes bad assumptions. Science fiction avoids linearity and predictions. This functions in opposition to political planning, which is just based on the short term. Ground is based on linear predictions. Only complexity theory formulates good policy making. Saw in 2004 most policy predict uncertainty chaos and uncertainty makes it possible to predict relation with policy making constituents with uncertainty comes from lack of knowledge. Data theory seems that I have larger than the input and prediction of the future of unreally impossible due to extreme sensitivity, national fluctuation, non-linear feedback, lose small differences, application, different control sciences never generate satisfactory academic policies that are governed by uncertainty, complexity, chaos, and they exclude every absence of freedom and evidence. Our interpretation without science fiction definitionally excludes any hypothetical action. Zero asks meet their framework internally turns their impact. Top calorie checks means there are very limited numbers of topical event advocacies that can be imagined, which solves your offense. They say have conditionality. We're not conditional. We only defend our imagination of one word. They say Swiss that we didn't solve because we don't get to affirm the topic. Their Kumar evidence is about literature, not in the context of cultural discourse as a starting point. Solve the utopian rules. And they say extropicality first is inevitable because of multiple affirmance have multiple steps to implementation. And second is that we internally link turn because we increase link ground for you to attack the extra couple points. And third, exclusionary picks check your abuse and should is defined as indicating a desirable or expectancy. This is the best interpretation of the resolution of policy may extend the plot evidence. Their conception of fiat as a bad model of policy making, assuming that the government can instantaneously do something ignores the actual legislation process. The idea that immediate implementation imposed fiat internally turns a real policy making off is based on an unrealistic model. This means they're in a double line, either A subpoint. Our interpretation is better because we can imagine that things can happen rather than rushing to interrogate immediacy, or B subpoint fiat does not exist because we can never discuss potential action. Because no has topical. Our discourse over Russia always topics of education, deconstructing amity is a prior question, except the Washburn and Burke have its intricacies, nuances, details, all ultimately become irrelevant. The only thing that matters is general impression. This makes interrogation and hostility towards Russia necessary to change cultural impressions overall. Critique. Except the Robert Sanders, we don't link to any utopias and bad because we aren't totalizing nor to be a forced utopia and limited difference. Here's a quote from Nietzsche. I suddenly woke up in the midst of this dream, but only to the consciousness that I am dreaming, that must go on dreaming lest I perish. That's in the 1800s. Dreaming, wonder, imagination, these are all concepts endorsed by the one you see. There are a few problems with their interpretation of what it means to dream and imagine. Utopianism, while it does search for a better world, is not an enforcement of the ideal. Rather, the affirmation of wonder creates self-affirmation. There's internally turns nihilism of Matus in 2007 category of affective forms acceptably but actively utopia techniques self-which it makes encouraging hopeful agency with mainstays block conscious exhaustion can be facilities of recognize imaginative and productive aspects of subjectivity, the boundaries of the genealogy are ambitiously modern and the status of acts and non-affected subject formulation dreaming therefore can be overtaken practice self-alterity and second wonder affective form wonder is no less durable than coupled with the direction certain disciplinary and hegemonic form self-conscious irreducible plurality potential present. We invite you to change your ideology. Notice how the advocacy statement was worded. We ask you to imagine this is distinct from a demand or an aesthetic ideal. We do not attempt to impose some order on you, rather the negotiable portions of our affirmative prevents the devolution and nihilism that their evidence criticizes. In turn, glorious expenditures creativity. We subvert productive ideology. The act of spending the excess on a project that demonstrates our raw creativity prevents nihilism. A subpoint is aesthetics. Nietzschean ethics are an affirmation of aesthetic politics. It stands in opposition to appreciation based on utility or land evidence. Link turns are advocacy, and B subpoint is production. What is the purpose of the tunnel? Yes, our imagination has a purpose, but ask yourself, what is the purpose of the actual piece of infrastructure? The answer is that we do not attempt to place some arbitrary value to the construction of a tunnel. This answers their argument because we are not caught with the idea of always having to achieve something. In our advocacies of link turn repression is comparatively worse when it comes to self-denying ethics. Our little evidence says that the reason we yearn to explore our creative side, but we simultaneously deny ourselves. This is the worst form of nihilism. Long evidence is a link turn. Technological utopianism means that we have value to existence because it stops the erosion of hope, i.e. nihilism. And permanent both is best option. Mutual exclusivity, yes. Incompatibility, yes. These are both characteristics that destroy theoretical permanency. However, it does not assume imaginative permutations. Combining two mutually inclusive advocacies is the point of the act. We don't sever, rather we embrace. Do that in 6. The effect of utopia during because of empty because overall teaming with magical and compatible electronics even the most minimal contracting ethic policy negative the subject production of it. Imagine utopia the desire called utopia to carbon with being confused capacity might therefore be about on the second paradigm. But not only production unimprobable contradiction but process no evil strategies for more gratification inherent in this very contradiction of pessimism impossible. Do not reject ethics. This is a double term of their argument. It's an imposition of meta concept that their evidence criticizes. The idea that ethics can never exist is still an ethical one of itself. Their argument is tautological and dreaming creativity, the breaking of shackles with the current human state, and in embracing of that and don't reject the one you see inclusion, decide reject them based on ethics. Yes, we embrace an ethic utopianism. However, this does not mean that all disagreements are circumvented. The whole point of our affirmative is to deconstruct racism into cultural discourse. Their argument is equivalent to saying that we should not have allowed former slaves into society. Recycled racism. This is a decision rule. Meaning in 2001 cannot be noticeable racism. One cannot the monster has not of the basket even really for the best power, which should manage with human nature abuse university would endorse fear justice and no violence degree to the outside all the victim racism militia the inevitable negative condition dominate the anti-racist struggle and prolongs the vast of humanity. We cannot feel dressed with this culture was the conflict violently and interaction in our life. We accept someday live in peace and. Their evidence is all sweeping generalization. The ethics of acceptance is key important. 2006 compassion helps recognize that our disobligation is from moments of compassion, breakdown from human dignity, not discriminating. I think we gives the right to interest, identity, and morality cannot consider actual relationship, but ethical people they have unconditional obligation to something who suffer, which in its coming to existence, whereas probably reading can be side deliberation, dissent, and argumentation, compassion, where direct response to having discourse, market discourse. We don't disagree that the world is chaotic. That doesn't mean that we can't embrace others.
Rob?
Cool. 25 seconds.
Awesome. Let's talk about the utopia advantage, or the rush advantage.
Sure.
Okay, so you say that the act of implementation is enough to solve for the relations, right?
It's the invitation to cooperate. Our argument
Just
is
the
that
invitation to cooperate.
our argument is that the symbolic gesture of the plan would be enough to overcome any type of residual
Okay.
bad news. Yeah.
Under-
Also, our cult.
In your plan text, does the United States federal government produce that symbolic gesture?
Yes, we
Or do we
imagine
just
a world.
imagine
We
that
imagine a
that's
world where
symbolic?
that occurs. It's just like we read the NIDF description.
Okay, does
We're
that mean
imagining
that the
national
Russia
security
advantage is predicated off of the United States federal government actually taking the action?
Well, no, our argument is essentially that it's twofold. First, yes, that the symbolic gesture of the advocacy would also be able to ameliorate relations. However, our argument is also that discourse within this round serves as a praxis point for creating real-world change. Our argument is that it would spill over to other forums.
So
that
does
within
the
deliberative
discourse
spaces,
within this round create all of us as ethical, we love Russia type people, and then we go become policymakers and make that gesture?
well, I don't want to be a policymaker, I don't know about you, but second of all, that's like saying if you had read a reps critique and the AF had come, if we had read a warming AF, the AF had come and said, well, warming reps are good because they create real world change, that's exactly the same thing. Under your interpretation, AFs wouldn't be able to allow it to do that. So I mean,
Okay, I'm just confused.
yeah.
Is the actual gesture that you're talking about necessary
That
to
is an
solve the
internal
relations?
link, that is an internal link.
So the actual gesture is
It
necessary?
is an internal link,
An internal link, okay. What are the other internal links then?
what I just explained.
Just that we all become ethical and happy-go-lucky,
I mean,
stuff like that?
I think that's a reductionist interpretation.
Well,
of
right,
it,
right.
but-
Obviously, I didn't explain everything that you just explained. All right, let's talk about the state pick real quick.
Sure.
You read that picks are bad, but then on framework you claim that the fact that we have exclusive picks solves for all our offense. Which one is it?
No, the argument is that you can deploy the net benefit of the disadvantage.
Right. That's
Okay, fine, scratch picks are bad.
Scratch picks are bad.
Picks are not bad.
Okay, picks are awesome. Good to know. Okay, so you say that you accept different worldviews in your utopia, right? Like your utopia could come from.
I know where this question is going. What we will say is that we don't sever out of our worldview, we embrace. So like if we were the NIV.
So you can
it's a
just
permutation on critique.
bring other worldviews into your utopia.
That is essentially what the
No,
permutation
it's
can
more-
entail, but it's more complex than that.
Right. No, I'm asking about like the fourth argument you made that we missed the point that your imagination is able to solve because you can imagine that the state doesn't exist, right?
No, our argument is that we must incorporate discussions within a deliberative space. It's not a focus on the process, rather the product.
Okay, so you can incorporate any discussion that we have into your specific.
I would like to think the AF can make arguments.
You can permute it. It's not saying that like the app.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did that take into account the 25 seconds?
Yeah. E, right?
Yeah.
As well.
While we're waiting, order is going to be Asia, excess with an overview, utopia, Russia.
Is there any shenanigans at the top of the needle stuff?
No, but there are a lot of shenanigans at the top of the tile stuff.
Are we talking like, am I gonna need 2 sheets of paper or is one sufficient?
One is probably sufficient. It's about to get weird.
Great. That's what I like to hear.
Set.
Last time I involved, I judged a Bataille debate involved Bonera doing 2 minutes of interpretive dance to his as long as you're not that weird.
It's not gonna get that
It's
weird.
gonna be on tape, Andrew.
It's not a very good dancer, so.
Really? Well, you also had your AF be a documentary that you filmed yourself.
This is true, dancing is weird.
Yeah. Really?
Me and my partner, we follow the dance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you win? Were you dancing?
I mean, it was a kind of an aesthetic, so I can look at it.
Okay.
It was against it.
Okay. Did you dig it?
Not that there was a lot of beauty in our dance.
Okay. Is everyone ready? Is anyone not ready, I guess is a better question. Alright, sweet. we go. Niche argument's not going forward, but you can functionally cross-apply the alternative to what I'm about to do on the battalion debate, which I'll admit is really weird, but anyways, on the permanence enabled us all because of the Lincoln debate, I'll explain them in the battalion debate. Also, the racism D-rule group, all the arguments why you should vote affirmative debate. I'm going to prove why Bataille shows that you should never accept morals and you should never accept moral guidelines. That's the reason why, all the reasons they gave you in the choice, why you should vote affirmative, you should vote negative. Go to the Bataille debate now. First of all, as an overview, they've conceded the its evidence in 1 NC, its indicates that indicates the excess the only way to expend the excess is to be violent in the face of rules. We cannot come to moral guidelines such as the argument that racism is a bad thing. We need to be as violent as possible. We need to expend the excess that it indicates that the way they rationally frame the 1AC, the way they rationally frame it is being able to cooperate with the other. That is not a way to expend the excess. That is the way we engage in the excess. Further indicates that following moral rules makes us lose our autonomy because we no longer act as ourselves. We act according to the rules other people have set for us. That in turn links their turns their Bataille argument because she's quoting directly from Bataille. Further, the land argument flows negative because the attempts to survive are bad. We should all be focused on expending as much stuff as we possibly can. These attempts to survive and attempts to cooperate with other people like Russia only distract from that. Further, we need to accept total chaos and expenditure across applies chaos arguments here. Reason why the app tries to be rational in the face of all this chaos is absolute nonsense. If everything is chaotic, how do we know Russia's going to cooperate with us? If everything is chaotic, how do we know this imagination we have can even come into place? Further, the Bataille evidence that was read in the 1NC indicates that acts based on rationality use predetermined calculations and ability that destroys our ability to waste the excess because we've thought about it beforehand, meaning their only internal link to their only possible internal link to the Bataille advantage is the San Francisco Chronicle evidence. They cannot get any offense on this because the way they framed it is that any act of that is not a war act by the federal government is an act to spend the excess. That means that any action in the status quo that the government ever takes is able to solve that. That's the reason why there's only a risk of offense going our way. I'm going to explain why the Bataille impact outweighs everything. Also vote neg to accept their arguments of that chaos is inevitable, or just vote neg for no reason. Who cares? First of all, that is framed as the ultimate act of expenditure. Further on later on the flow, he cries out. Also, view voting negative is sacrificing the 1AC. This sacred act liberates humanity from the shackles of modern politics, which culminates in nuclear annihilation. Goldhammer 5 liberation requires the sacrificial dismantling of political activity, taking a utilitarian pursuits. The revolutionary sacrifice liberates human beings from all servitude. The liberation requires sacrificial activities that subvert rational, useful, and productive modes of thought and action. Anything sacrifice generates the ecstatic experience of self-loss. Sacrifice must free humanity from politics. Sacrificial loss will save the modern world from nuclear annihilation. Sorry, my Norton thing came up. This is kind of an ethos destroyer, but here we go. Sacrifice holds the potential to generate sacredness. There we go. Sacrifice can through violence open a space of contestation that serves to challenge the status quo and practices further their attempts to avoid death or another link. The death drive is an inevitable part of the human psyche. The affirmative attempts to shove it under the rug via fetishistic obsession with the policy solutions. This is the precondition for the worst atrocities you jack. Night death drive down to biological fact, but the notion that the human psychic apparatus is subordinated to a blind autonomism of a repetition based on pleasure seeking. The death drive cannot be reduced to an expression of alienating social condition that defines all condition humane. There is no no escape. The thing to do is not overcome to come to terms with the terrifying dimension. Then, articulate modest to be vanity with it, the aspiration to abolish totalitarian, the greater mass murders and holocaust have always been perpetuated in the name of man without antagonistic consensus. First of all, this is further substantiated by their own Bataille impact evidence indicating that if we win the Lincoln 2 expenditure, the only way to avoid total war, which will probably impact turn their utopia as well as Russia arguments, is to engage in the most expenditure we possibly can. Further, the fear of death manifests itself in the fear of the other, resulting in exclusionary dichotomies that probably turns the Russian advantage. At 76, there's no criterion of manly differences with which we oppose death, which are undifferentiated concept of manly gives rise to discrimination, the increasing hold of rationality in our culture is man, the success by tradition of inanimate nature, animals, and fear of races. The match only have become categories. The poor undeveloped, those with subordinate IQs, perverts, and transsexuals, and intellectuals, and women. Ultimately, all these categories will be excluded, segregated, exiled, and finally, universal society, whether normal and the universal will last under the side of human at the core of the rationality of cultures excluded, and that proceeds and bring the exclusion of the dead, the exclusion and the dead of the death. Further on this Bataille, their Bataille evidence on the argument that their Bataille evidence controls the internal link to war, they can. Go back up to where you flowed the. They can't get any offense.
The only way they could get offense on this is through action, and their Batai evidence indicates that the U.S. would have to do things like global distribution of wealth in order to give everyone a fine living standard and everyone be equal. There is no way the U.S. can do this, which is Batai's functional argument. The way we rationally try to go about trying to make everyone equal and trying to make everyone cooperate inevitably fails. That is why he uses these these hyperboles that you read in the 1AC evidence. That's the reason why they're never able to solve. Further debate is theater, like Mercedes looking at Medusa in the mirror, voting negative results, and an intimate encounter with death that is critical to value life in the real world. Their calculus results in policy paralysis, which turns any benefit to voting after Brzezinski, uniting the sacrifice of both destroys and survives sacrificer burns like a sun. We did nothing to full death. We were burns as fire meaning death. We remain as spectators. We evaluation of values renders the meaning of the death crucial for humaneness. Death can not be looked at directly, but it can be grasped through a mirror. Per se is a trick against Medusa. Their safety that theater provides, knowing that we will remain alive enables us to get the taste of death. Life losing its interest when the high stakes might not be risky. We dare not contemplate any greater undertakings which dangerous, but indispensable. Paralyzed by the thought of disaster, the tendency to exclude death from life brings men any other renunciations and exclusion. Sacrifice brings together life in its fullness of annihilation. The sacred horror runs all like a theater, and every meaning is transfigured. The presence of death is stimulating by vivifying intensity of death, and balance melt life. But life is at its fullest moment. Its excess and fusion being survival limits our life. The threat of death ruins value, where value is only sure through duration. Sacrifices the affirmation of intimate opposed to the normal order of things. The economy of value, future oriented calculation stands in opposition to the assertion of death and the life. The need for duration conceals life from us. To meet death is necessary to have value, and is part of what makes us human. Further, even if you weren't to regularly vote on something like death good, they force us to read it. They've conceded because this is our most strategic option, because they have conceded the impact framing of the Batai evidence that the death drive specifically is bad for further post-sustainability. As a result of embracing our death-bound bodies, we must embrace depletion as opposed to the obstacle set in the future. The fall into the void of certainty, and then they do another kind of spending on the scale of the universe, which in spite of itself will entail whatever called post-sustainability, however speaks, announces it, yet it betrays the development of thought has been inseparable from the fossil fuel power growth and civilization. We are unknowable, unthinkable territory, and air of disproportion, Batai's weak. I love the ignorance concerning my future yet, and he understands sense of concerning the future, either good or bad, or beside the point, even silly said, instead there were any place of chance to the affirmative of what happened and what will happen. Utopia? Any internal link terms I have in the Batai debate is the reason why the utopia advantage. There's a unique reason to vote negative. I am able to win that Batai. Their theory of access is based on excluding the ideas of moral guidelines and truth. I mean, that is the reason you're going to vote negative on this advantage. All their offense on the utopia advantage is predicated on the idea that morals and notions of being good are true and good in the first place. I mean, if I internal link term that on the Batai debate, that's gone. Russia. This is what I was trying to do with the framing chaos debate. If they are right with the saw evidence that chaos is inevitable and there's no way we control, there's no way we can predict things like how Russia would react to the tunnel, or how any other international actor would react to the tunnel. There's no way we can predict our ability to cooperate with others, because there are so many actors in the international sphere. The way we should go about viewing the world is to basically just screw everything and accept that death is inevitable, and we can come to terms with that instead of trying to shove it under the rug. And the same with their chaos arguments probably link back to themselves, because they assume they can solve these type of things, even though they know as well as we do that chaos is inevitable. We can't predict anything.
Alright, so we can never succumb to the argument that racism is bad. We can't know if things are good or bad. Does that mean that we doubt that racism is a bad thing?
Say that one more time.
You said we cannot succumb to the argument that racism is bad, nor can we determine if things are good and bad objectively. Does that mean that we remain skeptical of whether or not racism is good or bad?
I don't know what you mean by remain skeptical. Could you rephrase
Do you think racism is bad?
I mean, even if it were bad, the Batai argues that succumbing to these moral guidelines and acting within them is limits us from spending excess.
So under your argument, racism is not bad.
It's not that racism isn't bad, it's just that we shouldn't abide by those rules.
Okay, so does your evidence ever make the delineation? Because I actually read both of these pieces of Batai evidence that you're referring to, the Batai 67 and the Batai 87 cards. Well, first of all, let's talk about the Batai 67 piece of evidence that you're spinning.
One second, I gotta pull it up.
Oh, you shouldn't have your evidence. But anyway, so the argument is, Batai criticizes what's known as an industrial society that is focused on accumulative mindsets.
Right.
Why isn't the one you see a giant link to this?
He talks about profane calculation, the act of calculating actions.
The act of calculating resources in economics. It's from the accursed share.
Rationality to engage in different types of
economic predictions. This book, all right, it's from the book The Accursed Share, which I've read this portion of the book. Why aren't we a link turn to this then?
why aren't you willing to turn to this?
Yeah,
Because
this whole book is written with Bataille embracing gift economics.
Is calculatively thought out in how we should go about engaging.
Okay, so you're just gonna make
policy,
it so
but ethics
your argument is
and
that sweeping
the other.
generalizations like calculative thought are always going to be bad. And you can never take any type of action. Rationalism should be rejected. Is that
Yeah,
your argument?
functionally.
Functionally, awesome. Rosinsky piece of evidence.
Yeah.
So Rosinsky is actually talking about in the end of the article that we need to embrace that that existence is finite. Where in the 1AC do we ever say that we're going to live forever?
Sorry, say that one more time.
The Rosinsky evidence, the article, it's called
Yeah.
How to Look Death in the Face through
Yeah.
Freud and Bataille.
Look
The article
death
is
in the face.
yeah,
Keen
looking death-
evidence says we
Okay.
need to do the plan.
Thanks.
to
Let me ask a
avoid
question
death.
first. So the article is all. My bad. The article is all in the context of us recognizing that existence is finite.
Right.
Where in the 1AC do we ever say that we will never die ever?
It's not that you say we will never die ever. That's not our link evidence. But you claim that this type of cooperation, this type of utopia, makes it so that everyone can get along and we're not going to die. Like, even if you didn't say the words,
Right.
we are never going to die, you try to prolong our life in a
Okay,
universe
so-
that is inherently chaotic.
So longevity-based calculations are bad. So like living life in terms of how long you can
Not just
preserve life is
longevity-based
bad.
calculations, just trying to preserve life above, like, other things.
So we embrace death.
Yeah,
Who embraces
functionally. I mean, I guess in this case it would be whoever your actor would be, I guess the judges.
If one is dead, how can we assure value?
Rephrase the question?
If one is dead, how can we assure that there is value?
We don't know what death is. I mean, I'm assuming you've never
So there's
died
no
before.
interpretation of death.
What?
There's no interpretation of
There
death.
is no, we cannot know anything
cannot know
about death.
Counter plan. Any shenanigans to talk about that table?
There's, I mean, a little bit of shenanigans. Not very much shenanigans,
So not an entire page front to back.
Not an entire page worth of
Oh, my bad. You didn't spill over 2 pages. There's just a little bit of space on it. This much space on it.
Your worst bears are coming to fruition. Let me tell you that.
That's the counterplan, right?
Yep.
Sorry, I'm not. Right.
Judges all ready? You guys good? Cool. Counterplan solves 100% of the case. Counterplan creates an active imagination without the involvement of the states who actually break down the ethic of the other towards Russia. Since it is all about our impression towards Russia, we can solve on an individual basis. That is their entire argument. State turns case 2 reasons. 1, including the state of the acts of imagination reinforces nationalism and our ideas because it's a way of constructed literary elites through journalism, novels, and language informs. That's theory and Ron A. The state 2 is the state constructs the identity, which results in a somewhat arbitrary delineation between the populace, causing genocide of those who don't fit in with their ideals, and the otherization of external nations. They specifically link to this because they create the dichotomy between the United States and Russia by saying that there is a difference between the two. The fact that they allow the state to define the difference between the two means that they will allow the state to genocide one or the other. You should view solvency deficits in the context of sufficient versus necessary. If the counterplan is sufficient to solve for their impacts, there is no reason why it has to solve any better than their impacts. They say perm do both. However, the perm links to their benefit. They still have action by the state, and that's bad. 2 is its severance. Its severance the imagination of state actions, and that's bad. 8 is have conditionality. The app becomes a moving target which skews the next round because they can always spike out of our offense. You can cross-apply all the voters from the framework flow in a world where they are able to co-opt all of our utopias. That is a reason why they are not a stable advocacy. B is education. They sever out of the topic mechanics which kills the ability to learn the resolution, and the counterplan is a precondition for the app to bring about any meaningful change. The discussion of the decision to enact violence is a critical component of violence that must be analyzed in order to mount an effective political strategy. This is Kapler 95. Political analysis of violence needs to recognize the personal decision in favor of violence is not just the right act of violence to condition one of the so to enable one in the place capture the moment decision real interest of violent action is not decision there is no violent act even in the circumstances where potentially permitted. The decision to violate the act itself makes the person perpetrator of violence to understand the structure of the things by which such decisions are reached by above. The regard of the decision and the choice of the permutation can't solve because of the emergence from the same paradigm of domination. Nair 99 and through the collision of language, therefore the imagination emancipation becomes involved in the enclosed conceptual space for articulation, same points, same rhetorical device becomes tools of entitlement cleansing United States sees the direction of the emancipation ordered by our own conceptual frameworks. They say conditionality is good. First, they're wanting, they don't say conditionality is good, they say it's bad. I say it's good. First, they're wanting to liberal evidence indicates that we must take multiple viewpoints. That's probably a reason why conditionality is good from their evidence to one and counter to basically one test of the implementation and affirmations of the status quo. True conditionality is necessary to create opportunity, cause the terminal impact, and create good decision makers. Conditionality creates rational decision. Free structural life by the Africans. First and last means to pick the focus of the debate and get ground negative before forces to receive specific things. They can tailor straight turns and go into counterpoint can't solve and force to pick the best arguments instead of reading out of luck while thinking on the fly. It's unique education. 5 terms are worse than to choose a world until the 2 AR we know can compare 2 stable words. Rejecting the argument doesn't solve because we already made the decision. 6 all arguments are conditional. CPs don't take more time to answer development topicality. 7 most real world we get challenged from both sides and the real world means you should understand the arguments of both sides. Exponential least is not a voter who any of his no arguments do not apply and which means there's no reason to vote us down and breath of death. You should understand more about more stuff and help us to figure things out and attend better research. We have to be able to peruse multiple lit bases and you should project the argument, not the team. Next, they say that it's not going to be solved. However, all we do is imagine the exact same thing they do, except we imagine it without the state. And if we win any risk that the state is bad, there's no reason to imagine a utopia in which a bad thing exists. That's probably a reason that you could vote on the counterplan right now. They say that it misses the point because imagination solves it. Imagination solves it. There's no reason why the counterplan does not solve it because it additionally imagines there's no reason they don't have any offense based on imagining the state on this point. And the next they say that the state is bad, that means we should disregard it. However, attributing responsibility to the state neglects the execution of actual policy. That turns case law on an idiot. It all too easily comes to know the picture of single-minded state that decides exactly what it wants to achieve. How coherent policies are rationalistic assumptions tend to inhibit the discovery of states, but sometimes they have to feel compelled to do academic pre-application of making policies accompanied by academic directive execution, policy execution really well in a real world of the state decides not to do a good one. The students of international politics must caution the attributing purpose of this responsibility to the government is essential that we bear constantly in mind that the arguments never fully in charge of the unity and their use of the state sees individual agency turning the case because we never take responsibility for otherwise in Russia. Kepler 95 focusing on the state power obscure responsibility leading to powerlessness and political disillusionment. Citizens feel secure in their non-responsibility. Large-scale political events or decisions they're making elsewhere. Instead is not responsible for taking no responsibility for forming its own judgment. It's above absolves from having any relation between political decisions or personal decisions. Mark that as decisions. They say that they're going to accept different worlds. One, this just proves our conditionality arguments in any and all of the permutation answers apply. If their advocacy statement is fundamentally incompatible with our advocacy statement because they imagine a world in which the state still exists and the state is enacting things in a world where we are as global citizens imagining these things. There's no reason for the state to exist. Next, they say that we evaluate the state in the vacuum. However, if we win that is not good to engage the state, then that is a reason. This argument is essentially we need to infuse ethics into the state. If we imagine a world where the state doesn't exist, there's no reason we have to infuse those ethics into the state. They say pick's bad, but then they say picks aren't actually bad, so that's fine.
Yes. What?
Order. Russia. Then just like the tie thing. Not so view or advantage anymore. I'm just extending utopia.
Sorry, can you give the order one more?
Russia, the small overview. The counterpoint.
Another counterpoint?
Yeah, that's an adorable picture. Picture?
That was not me.
Oh, yeah, it's great. He looks 8 years old.
That's not my.
Yes, he is.
Yes, it is. It's a hard age.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, soft.
Judge Clark's right. Your boyfriend's throwing up gang signs. You really know him that well?
Sorry.
He's the Arkansas gang.
Everyone ready? Yeah? Awesome. We self-predictions office, we have a specific defense of science fiction is good in the context of complexity. Micropolitics means that we can work from the bottom up, which solves all of the reasons why chaos is inevitable. This is also isolated from the racism stuff. We can coherently say that we're racist or trust in the status quo. Racism is bad. That's mimic evidence, which means that they justify not integrating, not allowing the slaves to be allowed back into society at post Civil War, etc. He says, screw everything. This is the sort of politics that justifies racism, saying the status quo, which means that if you can decide that racism is something that is bad, as defended by the value statements I will make on the battalion flow, then this is a reason to vote for the Russia advantage. Extend the permutation, it tells us the canoe evidence in case even if they don't have an alternative in the arbitrary debate norm sense of the term that never really meant anything anyway. The permutation is just the argument that their acceptance of chaos and suffering is not mutually exclusive with deciding that the 1AC is good for some reason, be it racism, etc. They say Brzezinski evidence. The plan is critical to value itself. There has to be an agent, and we have to take action. Fox 87, the non-human life forms with injury 5 allows on highlighting them as the morally important value as it relates to concept of the role subjective of the objective elements, and this entails he gets the time to everybody but it's still they have no value with the interaction with the finding things happening to different in the future. There is an direct side of the value relation which deserves to respect the separate form of the value experience with the client down second. The of evolution continuity with cultural values of control of the fire so that antipathetic gift the not the narrowly expressed dependent on intrinsic then no dependent on creature. They say sacrifice the 1AC. You can vote for the 1AC as a form of sacrificial politics. That's the Yang evidence. But for our specific internal links to Brzezinski evidence, just indicates we have to accept finitude. We can accept finitude, i.e. that everyone will always die, but that doesn't mean that we can't try to extend our own lives. Utopia advantage also stated here. He functions just as the tide turns. It doesn't really coherently extend why our evidence indicates that we can use utopia to overcome small problems and to the status quo to find some sort of human value system. Long evidence indicates that the alternative devolves into nihilism, because it means we never can say that things are objectively good and bad. We lose the will to shape history. Fear of death is inevitable regardless of the critique their conception. And reorientation of the death drive is bad. That's Brzezinski at L6. Human beings are interdependent constitutional organisms broadly promoted several reproduction. Because that is left for finality of the life and emergent properties. But results from evolution, cognitive ability, that's constant expenditure, psychological energy of preserving life would be possible if the free evidence is double-rounded concept. And it leads to meaninglessness, in which turns to critique Brzezinski for Umich report of based on the ability to say life if your intellectual abilities to think and predict self-reflect with the great major model debate. So whether we must cite this picture for there whatever the aim for life stuff to lower level construction but be used to the intellectual ability to manage the British agriculture wants to be humanitarian or the coveted conception of the world, a substantive with the good and evil, sense of the sense of right, with beliefs in little or immortality, universe, culture, pride, culture's pride is with they say rationality. No, the McManus evidence we read about Nietzsche says that endorsing the 1AC is an act of wonder. We accept the lack of finitude and the potentiality inherent in the 1AC, which means that we can do that and accept the chaotic nature of the universe. They say that any action is bad, and that ultimately it's all just going to destroy itself. This argument doesn't make any sense, and it is actually an AFCAR because it says that we should engage in glorious expenditure and try to get rid of the access that we have in the status quo. They say death drive is inevitable. I already answered that above. However, this leads to a ceding of agency because it means that we can just say everything that ever sucks is inevitable, which means that we shouldn't act to stop things like death. We are only aggressive because of the death drive. The fear of death, bad evidence. This evidence indicates the fear of death is inevitable. The Baudrillard evidence does not indicate that it leads to otherization. The AF controls the biggest internal link to otherization, and the fact that they read Baudrillard evidence with an embedded internal impact of otherization being bad proves that there are things such as values of the 1AC is able to solve otherization, which means that we can internally turn this value system. Yeah. Anything else? The Sokol evidence is also an AFCAR. It says that we have excess, we should just channel it somewhere.
Roscoe's evidence says that Bataille criticizes industrial studies. Bataille doesn't hate the plan. Bataille would support it.
Bataille would support the plan because it is a reframing of the way that
they
industrial
misread his
works
philosophy because he criticizes accumulative mindsets.
He criticizes a cumulative mindset, not one that channels excess into macropolitics.
Right, so we can still be rational.
Counterpoint. The Epstein evidence is our defense of the state. We have to imagine ourselves in the relationship of another agency, i.e. the state, which means that we can have a better sense of empathy with the other. Only doing this allows us to have an ethical relationship with those who live other in the world, which means that evolving ourselves with the state is good. Also, it is key to solving the AF because we have to have a symbolic gesture of the USFG taking action. USFG policy is the flawed portion of the status quo, which means that which means that is necessary. Their net benefit is way too generic. It just indicates that the state can do bad things, and that engaging with the state is not always good. The capital evidence is directly impacted by the Epstein evidence, and it sees individual agency when we do not relate to the state. It allows the state to get away with all the bad policies that they do, and the status quo. The permutation is sufficient to solve because it means that we can we don't sever any of the AMP. We do all of the 1AC plus the permutation, which imagines a world absent the state, which means that we solve all of their offense about imagining a way a way to do the plan necessary external from agency. Also solve all of the reasons why the symbolic action by the USFG is better than everything else. They say that it severs, doesn't sever anything. Yeah. Cloud evidence is an AFCAR. We read that in the 1AC. We accept this.
Sorry, go back to Bataille. Say even if debate is theater, we can still be active within this theater.
They say debate is a theater. We can still be active within that theater. McManus evidence says that wonder is good. Conditionality. This may proves why conditionality is bad, even if they don't have an alternative in the judicial system. It turns out it just makes it harder for us to have permutation and contradictory advocacy. Our unique reason to reject the team is logical ways to external taxation, to multiple worlds in which she can find add-ons and force a double turnership situation to change for offense. B shall debating destroys advocacy to the police covered argument. They say the 1AC proves that they get condo. No, it does not. It proves that we need potentiality, not contradictory advocacies that destroy the ability to have coherent policy analysis. Our 1AC is consistent with itself. Yours was not, which means that the robot strategy and the fairness impact that is in this debate outweighs everything else. They say permutations are worse. No, the argument of the team and permutations are just a test competition. They have a direct contradiction, which is a logical logic outweighs everything else, because you can say we get a pro-lift impact, however, because it's more fair, however logic proceeds.
You have
15 seconds.
yeah. Have you been doing any more freestyle rapping?
I haven't been doing any freestyle. I showed my roommate the rap I wrote last year.
That was pretty good.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was, I actually used auto names. I was so lazy.
Yeah.
And then, who was it, Hardy walk in?
Yeah, Hardy
Yo,
walks
what's up?
Who is the music for rapping?
I don't know, Florida.
That's Palmetto.
Yeah. I don't know, Facebook.
His rap was not very good.
No, his rap was like super personal.
Yeah. Yeah. It was new personal. What? His robbing defense.
Yeah, sure. That's
There's nothing about like you in particular.
Right.
I mean, I did all this stuff. He just taught me about it. No, just like over camp, singing the Nietzsche song. Yeah. Ruining debate even when he's not in the round.
Text Greenstein and Tomlin Park.
He'll be back when he gets back. It's nothing wrong with having excess time. Yeah. Terrible for that joke.
Were you 15? Or was your beach done?
No, it wasn't. It was a really bad joke.
That one was meant to be.
Ready for this color?
I suppose.
Joseph, you might want to let them Clark go first.
Alright, Doug, what you going for?
Maybe you want to sit
It's gonna be. Are you
or
ready
on the
now?
ground. That looks good.
Hey, probably take it now.
Sorry, what's up?
It's gonna be the. I don't feel like thinking right at all.
Okay.
It's gonna be the counter plan. Actually, counter plan to kick it, and then condo will be later, and then the batai stuff and then overview.
Alright, so what kind of overview are we talking about? Will you get to the line by line?
I will. It will be.
Computer.
I can't pull on a computer.
It will be much faster to the line by line this time. The only thing that's on the overview is the impact of it.
Ah, okay. John, did you get? I'm gonna blow it on the back.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just going to get a new sheet of paper.
I'm not
even gonna bother. Well, I will.
Everybody shut up.
For real. Are you ready? Counterplay, kicking and not going for it. Who would have predicted that? A tie.
The way you need to frame this debate is that they conceded that the 1AC that the excess is what inevitably leads to global wars. The lack of spending on it is the lack of extra expenditure that leads to the things like military production and the development of nuclear weapons that is the precondition for war and their violence claims to occur. If I win, the link to as per tie, all war is a function of the excess, and that they prevent the expenditure of the excess. There's only a risk of offense for there's only a risk of offense for the negative. Go to the line by line now. First, they say that you should vote for the 1AC for fighter 2 because we're always going to dive and know that they missed the point of our gold hammer evidence that the sacrifice is key. Gold hammer indicates that right now, here in the debate space, we can sacrifice the 1AC as an act of direct violence in order to pray as a type of experience, as a type of experiment from spreading over into the the rest of the world further. You cannot vote AF in order to support
expenditure of the excess. They 1AR conceded way too many links. First, extend the X given evidence that has a few links. First is that the excess indicates that you need to be violent innately. That is the reason why the AF is never able to solve, because we need this one specific act of violence. The sacrifice of the 1AC right here in this round. Further, they conceded that following moral rules makes us lose our autonomy and further makes us more violent.
it prevents expenditure of the excess because we do not act as ourselves. We do not act ecstatic like we normally would because we are constantly held back by rules and moral guidelines. It leads to a life of suffering. That is a quote from the card talking about the instance of a tie further. Sorry, I had something else to say on that piece of evidence. That is the reason why impact turns our racism arguments. We do not lead to nihilism, that's below, but I'll answer now. We do not lead to nihilism because there can be moral goods and bads, but we should not follow them because that means we inevitably have energy kept up. That is what leads to the war scenarios. Further, the land evidence indicates that our attempts to survive are bad. This is a specific instance of the death drive. You read this evidence on the YC. We should always be focused on expending as much energy as we can for total chaos and expenditure. That is the reason why you should vote negative in order to affirm the idea that chaos is always inevitable, that we are always going to be unpredictable, that we are always there is basically nothing that is valuable that we can stick to without causing further chaos. They say the agent is key to the Fox evidence, but no, there's no impact to this argument. First of all, further next thing, second, cross-apply the tie evidence that indicates the act based on predetermined calculations waste our ability to waste the excess, and also cross-apply the autonomy argument that once we follow moral rules, that they becoming an actual full agent, as possibly says utopia solves, but cross-apply the Itzkowitz evidence here, even though ideas of utopia are nice, we are never able to follow them. That is the thesis of their excess argument, that even though some things go to certain peaceful processes, they inevitably keep energy kept up. That leads to war. They say it needs to nihilism. That was above. That was above. They say the death drive is bad for Skinsky evidence. Look, Bataille is based on the idea of the death drive, that we need the ultimate expenditure, that we need to accept death as it is and run towards it. Any argument they read as to why the death drive is bad is functionally a double turn with the 1AC and should basically be rejected. Further, they say it makes everything meaningless, but they concede that that's not unique. Cross-apply the Bataille evidence from above for trying to follow rules. It makes it inevitably so that we have no value to life. Next to say they're not rational, they're wonder, but further next you can cross-apply. Further, the entire 1AC was carefully calculated out the way we need to cooperate with Russia in order to solve these types of utopianism argument. That's the reason why you accept rationality. That's another link argument. Further, that's what? Okay. Next is the AF cards of glory expenditure. That is an AF card and glorious expenditure. But no, the Beaujard evidence is a perfect link. Indicates the fear of death manifests itself in all terms arguments because of the fear of death that causes us to fear the other. That's why you're never able to. They're never able to solve. They say this double turns with us, but no, we're not saying fear of the other is bad. We're just saying that even if you win your framework, that's the reason why you're never able to solve. Next to say we see the agency lead to bad things, but no, chaos is inevitable. That's the reason why you're never able to solve. They say that otherization is bad. There is no universe. Even if it is bad, trying to constrain ourselves means we are never acts of violence are good are types of expanding the. No, never mind. Forget that argument. Next, that was already answered above. The Sokol evidence flows negative, impacted by our own Bataille evidence. I feel like I've extended that too many times already. Just cross-apply. Next to say, but Bataille supports the plan because of critical accumulation mindset. No, that link evidence was explained above. Conduct. All his arguments in the context of having multiple conditional arguments we don't need to is always an affirmation of success, which means we don't need the offense, concede it offense, we see strategic things, they have to tailor the straight turns instead. Reading on the blocks, that's unique only on the fly education, no ways there. Fair, this kind of because Humza himself said that maybe fair is inevitable in the framework full opportunity cost. We have to create rational decision makers. One is not cost to another. That is the reason we should be able to compare the two in the real world. Breath outweighs depth. Knowing a lot about one thing does nothing for us. When we have to get into the real world, we need to end up talking to ourselves in better research. We peruse more lit basis, which is a good thing because we can learn more about the topic internally in terms of all their arguments.
508.
Yep.